Hi, this is Conrad, your curator of Viking culture, and we're in Dublin today, and you're watching The Viking Life. This is The Viking Life. Thanks for joining us. We're going to take you to the monuments, the events, show you the artifacts, and introduce you to the people who are celebrating Viking culture today. We're excited to have you on this journey, and welcome. Hi, so this is the Viking Life Dublin episode, and we went to Dublin in January to visit some Viking sites and hunt Vikings. So there were some wonderful monuments there, and we want to share them with you. And we're going to kind of bring you an overview and make it easy for you to go see these sites. So we'll have a map of where all these are located. And the nice thing is they're kind of all in the same area. But when we first went, I had known for a while that Dublin was significant in Viking history, and that Dublin wouldn't be Dublin without the Vikings. Because when they first went, it was really, you couldn't even say it was much of a settlement. There was something there, but it wasn't anything significant. And then the Vikings came, realized its potential, built long forts, which were basically secure places for their boats to launch, and they could launch raids and do a lot of trading from Dublin. So that's why it became so significant. We can dive into that a lot more later. But when you do visit Dublin, you need to go to the Stein of Longstone first, because this is significant. It is just a fantastic sculpture created by Cleona Cussin, and it was erected in 1986 to commemorate the original pillar that was lifted by Ivar the Boneless into this area, they believe, and that stood for about 1,000 years. And that original stone was about 14 feet high. It was a granite pole or pillar that was placed in the earth and stood for all of the incoming Vikings to see and understand. This was a place to moor your boats if you wanted to visit Dublin. And so it's got a great history, and I'm going to include more of this information on later videos, but definitely visit the Stein, and you'll find it if you visit the Trinity College. Get dropped off there, and then head to your left when you're facing the college up College Street, and there'll be an intersection with Pierce and Townsend Street, and it's at this intersection, this island, that you will actually find the Stein. We had the opportunity to visit the Little Viking House. In October of 2020, the German grocery store Lidl was excavating for a new location on Unger Street, and they stumbled upon a Viking house in the ground, and they did some excavation, but instead of taking it apart and moving it brick by brick into a museum, they left it where it was, and they built the store around this archaeological dig, which was absolutely amazing to see how progress and preservation can actually work hand in hand. So in the middle of the grocery store, just everyday grocery store you'd find on any corner, they put plexiglass over this archaeological site and did some great highlighting, and it really pops. You can see it very, very easily and quite well. And it's an 11th century Viking home, and it's there for everyone to see. So we're in the Temple Bar district, having a few pints, and we decided to go exploring. We turn the corner, and we literally stumble upon the Norseman bar. Now, we are the Viking Life, so of course we had to go inside and have a few pints. And this is not a Norse-themed bar on any level, but all it took was the name to draw us in, so Skål to the Norseman bar for that. We did get a chance to meet the managers and the bar staff at the Norseman. We want to thank them for their hospitality. Do stop by the Norseman bar or if you're going to be in the Temple Bar district for a certain amount of time and you need a place to stay, they do have hotel room suites available to you. So Skål to the Norseman bar. We'll definitely be back on our next visit. Now, many of you watching this channel already know that in 793, the Vikings raided the monastery at Lindisfarne. But in 795, they sailed up the River Liffey and established the settlement Dublin, which meant Black Pool, and this is where the River Liffey and the Pottle Rivers meet. And they realized the significance because they could launch raids all over the British Isles from this location. So they built long forts here, which were shore fortresses, and it allowed them to overwinter in this location instead of having to cross the North Sea in the winter months, which, if you've been on the North Sea anytime in January, that is no joke. So well thought out by the Vikings. They established this as a major trading location for all Northern Europe. They would go out, they would raid, they would bring those spoils back. They would trade those with locals, with other Vikings, who would then take them all around the world. And you can imagine that the indigenous population of the time would bring in their goods and they would sell those into the Dublin trading area. And a lot of people prospered from the Vikings establishing Dublin. While you're there, visit Dublina. If you're new to Viking culture and the Viking Age, this is a great place to go. There's a lot of entry-level information for you and children to explore. It also talks about the medieval times of Dublin, so fantastic to really understand the origins of Dublin. What I liked best was the timeline that we got to see, and it really put the Viking time, the Viking Age in Dublin into perspective. So we enjoyed it. We enjoyed reviewing the information we've learned over the years, and it's a fantastic little museum. And when you leave the museum, if you turn to your left and you kind of go down about 50 yards and look across the street, you're going to find another Viking Age home, but this is marked out with pavers, and it's really neat because it shows you how things were laid out, how the homes were laid out at the time. And here's a little video of that for you to watch. But if you turn around, you're now looking at Christ Church Cathedral on the backside. So things are very close by in this area, which makes seeing things easy. I'm going to put together a map for you so you don't have to do a lot of backtracking like we did. But you'll also see in the sidewalks are these pavers that will designate what was found in these areas as far as artifacts. And sometimes it's arrowheads, sometimes it's pots, sometimes it's a scythe. You know, each one is a little different, so definitely keep an eye to the ground when you're walking around Dublin so you can find these little paver artifacts. For a good portion of our visit, we're in the Quay area, and this is really where Viking Dublin happened. What was significant about Quay is that that's where most of the archaeological information, where the archaeological dig really was focused. And the reason this happened was in the 1970s, the Dublin civic offices, they were building these and they had to do some excavation prior and stumbled upon this Viking Age settlement. And this settlement area was really where the Vikings would on and offload their cargo, which is kind of the idea behind the Kays. Here on the map, you can see there are quite a few different Kays, and the names were where the captains would come in to offload their cargo and where the merchants knew where to go pick up their cargo. Places like Wood Quay, Essex Quay, and Merchant Quay are just a few examples. The iron ship sculpture. It's near the Wood Quay, and it's an iron sculpture that was put in place to commemorate where a Viking ship was uncovered during the excavations. It's got a prow and a stern that has that great Norse styling, and the inner benches are where people can sit while they're waiting for the bus. It's a little whimsical, but it still does a great job helping people to remember their Norse heritage. Christ Church Cathedral really sits at the top of the Wood Quay area, and is significant because it is the location where Sitric Silkbeard, the grandson of Ivar the Boneless, built his fort, and from which he raided into inner Ireland and out around the coastal areas as well as Wales. He ruled. Dublin Castle was actually built by the Normans in the 12th century. They were originally Vikings, but the castle was built on the site of Ivar the Boneless and his original stronghold. While you're at the Stein of Longstone, if you turn around and face the college, there will be an alley. Now take this alley, and it'll bring you to the tennis courts and continue to walk, and then it'll bring you to this large open square with the bell tower, and it's pretty magnificent in its own right. But if you continue walking that direction, you'll make a short left, and that will be the entrance to the Book of Kells. Now, I'll be honest, I was not excited to see the Book of Kells. It was just part of the tour to get to see the Trinity Library, which was what we really wanted. But we thought, well, you know, it's a Bible. What does it really have to do with the Viking life? Well, it turns out it was probably the biggest surprise of our trip. And I really ended up enjoying it a lot more once I found out why. And it was the height of artistic expression of the time. So you have to appreciate that. But while I was there, I was thinking, wow, the Vikings would have loved to have gotten their hands on this. They would have so appreciated that treasure. They would have liked it even more when they sold it to a wealthy Christian king. So that's really what I was thinking and where my mind was at while we were visiting there. I did notice there was a lot of Norse influence on a lot of the illustrations, so I appreciated that. But the story goes that it was created in 800 CE, and it took a while because everything was one-off, one-of-a-kind, handwritten. So it does take some time, and you can imagine the monks, working on this day and night, burning a lot of candles, getting a lot of what they probably had no idea of was carpal tunnel at the time, but they worked on it, and the beauty of it comes out. Well, around 805, the Vikings raided Iona, and they raided that monastery, and they killed 63 monks, but a handful escaped, and they grabbed their greatest possessions of the time, and that was the book, and they spirited it away, and they brought it to Kells Monastery, which is in Meath, Ireland, which is why it's called the Book of Kells, and it was actually finished there. But the Vikings almost had their hands on it. It was close, and what a story that would have been had they actually been able to do it. So that's the story behind the Book of Kells. I hope you appreciate it like I do. At the start of the video, I promised you a map with all of the areas and sites outlined, and those you'll find with the orange arrows. Starting at the right top hand corner, you'll find the Stein of Longstone. Directly below it is Trinity College. Going to the bottom of the map in the center, that is the Little Viking House. Right above it is Dublin Castle. Moving to your left, that first arrow, that points to one of the paver plaques. A little more to the left is Christ Church Cathedral, and on its left is Dublina. Moving to the top of the map, that next arrow is where you'll find the second Viking house with the pavers. The arrow above that is the wood Quay. Moving towards the center, but still up, that is the Viking ship sculpture. And in the center top, you'll find the Norseman Bar and Temple Bar District. So that brings us to the end of the Dublin episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you'll return. Please like and subscribe if you liked our content.